In this part, this is the part 2 of creating a CI/CD pipeline for .NET. We'll be examining the CI/CD pipelines configured by Azure DevOps project in part 1, which we have seen in details as a lab. And I strongly suggest that, since this part 2 is also built on the part 1, you view the part 1 first before coming to this part. And the part 1 will be in the description. Also, it will be in the cards. All right. Now, in the previous part, that was part 1, now we are going to examine the part 1 that we built earlier, where we have seen that the Azure DevOps Starter project automatically configured a full CI/CD pipeline in our Azure DevOps organization, and we can explore and customize the pipeline as needed. Now, we will follow certain steps to familiarize ourselves with the Azure DevOps build and release pipeline. So let's switch over to the Azure portal. Okay, so I have opened the DevOps Starter project, and if I click on Build Pipelines, I have got this link opens the browser tab and the Azure DevOps Build Pipeline for my new project. Okay. Now, if I click on like this, 3 ellipses are there. Here, sorry, and edit. So on clicking edit, I got various tabs, which are tasks, variables, triggers, options, and history. We'll see one by one, each of them. Okay, we can examine the various tasks for our build pipelines. Now, these tasks are restore, build, test, publish functional tests, and copy run settings file, copy ARM templates, copy database file, and publish artifact. Now, this build pipeline performs various tasks such as fetching sources from Git repository, restoring dependencies, compile the application, run tests, and publishing output used for the deployments. Okay. So under our this build pipelines, we'll select history and our build pipeline name, and we see if there is an audit trail of our recent changes for the build. Azure DevOps keeps track of any changes made to the build definition and allows you to compare version. So there is nothing on the history. So it doesn't show anything. Okay. When we select triggers, the Azure DevOps project automatically created a CI, continuous integration trigger, and every commit to the repository initiates a new build. We shall see that in the part 3. So you can optionally choose to include or exclude branches from the CI process. So you can either include or exclude this master branch. If they have any featured branches, you can include or exclude. And you can also include the path. Path filters include /r. You can exclude this path or any other path. You can include or exclude. Now, within pipelines, you have got this releases. And this is the release 1. This is the releases. Release 1, which we have briefly seen in the first part. Now, the Azure DevOps project created a release pipeline to manage deployments to Azure. So, if we click on this release and releases, if you want to edit, I've clicked this release pipeline and click on edit. And we have got artifacts and stages. And we'll select drop. Now, the build pipeline you examine in the previous steps, it produces the output used for the artifact. Okay. And if we click on this trigger continuous deployment trigger, this is the enabled. So it will be doing the continuous deployment. What else? Now, if we select tasks, just close this window, select tasks. So there are the 5 tasks. So this is Azure Resource Group Deployment. Now this Azure Resource Group Deployment task deploys the required Azure resources, Azure Web App, and Azure SQL database for the application to use. And then this is the Azure App Service Deploy. This task deploys the application package to the website. Execute Azure SQL or Azure SQL database deployment. This task deploys SQL changes to the database. And Visual Studio Test task run functional tests after the successful deployment of the application. Okay. Now I click this ellipsis and view releases. It will show me all the releases. So this is the release one. If you click on this, it will show the dev succeeded with 4 warnings. Okay. Now, this is the release number we have seen to come to this window. And this is showing 100% test passed. Now I have clicked logs. Here is logs, which I have also shown briefly in the previous part. And you can view the logs both during and after the deployments. Okay, all these steps are logged. Okay. It's all logging of everything in detail. So we have briefly examined everything that is there to examine of importance in the Azure DevOps Starter project. And in the next lab, we'll be creating some modification. We'll updating the code online on the browser itself, and we'll trigger the CI/CD pipeline and see the changes in action already deployed.